Testing, testing, one, two, three.
streaming. Thank you. Apologies, members. The apologies. I don't have any. Any from the floor or nope. Declarations of interest. We can take them as we go through the meeting, if that's okay. Our first item is health and recreation report. This is a decision item 3.1, and Neil will be presenting.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. In September 2016 and 2018, committee approved 3-year plans which defined the closing and opening time of council main leisure facilities. The publication of opening and closing hours in advance allows public and customers to plan their visits, avoid disappointment or inconvenience, and it also shows transparency and accountability, which can build trust and reputation. The detailed plan is shown in Appendix 1. Just for members should note, the opening hours will remain under review, looking at customers' feedback, usage trends, employees' feedback, and any changes to the proposed appendix will be brought back to committee for approval. Therefore, members, it's asked that members agree the proposed 3-year plan for closing or opening times of our indoor leisure facilities during public holiday periods between 2024 to 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil, for that report. I have one question coming in. Councillor Alexander.
Hello, and thanks, Neil, for that report. I just had a quick question just around the data that you put in. You were sort of mentioning that you seem to see a sharp drop off sort of after 4 o'clock. But actually, the 3 days that you put in, I think the 3 days in May, 2 of them didn't actually have any data for 4 o'clock, and one of them obviously showed a sharp sort of, a sharp decrease from 4 p.m. onwards. But I just wonder, was that on days where the centre also closed at 5 o'clock? Because I would just sort of question that as sort of being suitable data maybe to make the decision on. I mean, just with the fact that I'm thinking if it were me and I knew the centre was closing at, if I knew the centre was closing at say 5 o'clock, I wouldn't turn up to go swimming at 4 o'clock. So I'm just wondering, is it something that we could maybe look at the trends versus days where the centre's open full time, that sort of thing. So, that would essentially be my question to you, because there are some days I'm just not sure if it's necessarily suitable to close the centre early or at all. But as I say, I'm sort of open to have a bit of a conversation about it and just try and understand exactly what data is being used, because the actual report itself just listed the days, the closure times, and then there's only a small amount of data available in the actual report.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. I'll bring in Paul now for hopefully he can maybe answer some of your questions.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me back in. Good evening, members. Yes, thank you, Councillor Alexander, for the question. Just because we did take a snapshot of May's opening hours over the bank holidays, and what we found was after it was more 3 o'clock, the drop-off was. You are right in saying if the centre closes at 5, you're very likely going to come to the centre at 4:30. So we're looking more around 3 o'clock, but the general peak was around midday for the usage. So the data does support a 5 o'clock closure due to it's more than half of the visits that do come in after sort of 3 o'clock. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Alexander, are you happy enough with that explanation?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I'd still be keen to maybe try and understand the trends of those days versus some other days, maybe, and maybe I don't know if there's something that that maybe could be looked at in terms of like a survey with basically with members to say is this something that you know, maybe if it was open slightly later on, maybe a few select days. I'm obviously not suggesting that all bank holidays we sort of just go for like a de facto change, but certainly in some of those days where there's maybe like a day off in lieu because of, you know, basically one of those bank holidays falling on the weekend, that sort of thing. I just want to make sure that we're kind of obviously maximising, you know, the sort of availability of the centres while still making sort of sensible use of the sort of time and resources that we've got. So, you know, sort of happy enough with the recommendation as the way it is, but just obviously keen to emphasise, you know, that we just kind of continually look to monitor and sort of evaluate the days that we are selecting for those reduced hours or closed hours, and that we maybe just examine the data in a slightly different way, maybe going forward to try and learn a little bit more about the data and the trends that we're seeing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Alexander. Bringing in Alderman Baxter.
Just to report the recommendation, Chair.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation proposed. Have we a seconder? Councillor Ratliff. Thank you. All in, happy enough, all in favour? Thanks. Our next 5 items are information items. Members are happy enough we take them as read. You've had them now for a number of days, or have any questions? Okay, I'll bring in Alderman.
Thank you, Chairman. Suppose just really looking at the question, fantastic results there for some of the people, you know, for all of them really. But it's just really sort of the difference between excellence and good there for some of the centres. I would like to have thought our jewel in the crown behind us would have been not number 14, but number 1 at least, or close to it. The amount of money that's being pumped into it, you know, and I think, you know, whenever I was reading through some of the reports, Chairman, some of the places don't seem to be getting CPD, or is it CD, their career progression. It does mention that they should be getting, whereas Dromore, they're all the boxes ticked. You know, I do think there's something missing there. All of them should be getting higher results. But that's just sort of the negative point. But I would like to ask, sort of in Guildford, it talks about energy and the energy utility in it. Could someone explain that one? And also, there was meant to be counters put into Guildford several months ago, and they're still not there. So I'm just wondering, how are we collating the data for the amount of people utilising Guildford? Because we had this argument several months ago, and it's still not in place, because I've been there a number of times recently, and there's no data to be projected for our numbers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. We'll bring Paul in again. Will we answer that?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alderman Barr, for the question. Just to kind of clarify a little bit around the customer service audit, and obviously the team is very proud of getting where we are. There's a lot of mystery shops, and it's in relation to the customer primarily. I'll certainly look into the TBD points, I suppose, off the back of all of the audits. The reason we did the audit is to try and harmonise everything so that there isn't a disparity. So getting a third party in to tell us what we're doing good and what we're not doing as good is really beneficial for the 9 centres to drive that harmonisation. So all the centres have developed their own action plans off the back of this to try and get the best practice up with Dromore, which was obviously number 1. So I hope that answers the questions. I'm not sure the counters. I'll have to come back to you on that, if that's okay, Alderman Barr.
Thank you, Paul. I'll bring Alderman Barr back in again.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me back in. It's just sort of the other one was utility usage by the energy officer. Could explain that one? And it's in the Guildford sort of assessment. I'm assuming that's to do with the cost of oil or whatever, but could somebody explain what that actually means? And there was another comment that was sort of fluent. I'm not too sure. There was, I think it was the mentioned in Dromore, I think was the negative part, about their social media presence, where someone had to go through the Get Active and actually had to scroll down a brave part to it to find anything that mentions Dromore. So, you know, I suppose the question really is, do all the centres have their own social media presence? And if they do, then, or if they don't, can they get that? Or is that a big drama? Or is that difficult for them to be able to utilise their own social media presence? And if they do, can we obviously develop that more for themselves to get everywhere, every centre and every management, you know, where we need them to be, you know, and that's all of them fighting for #1 spot. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. Bring Paul in again.
Thank you, Alderman Barr, for the questions. Look, there was a few questions, so I'm happy to pick this up with you tomorrow with a few questions. But in terms of social media, just to clarify, we have one Get Active ABC brand. All of our social media goes through that. So there is literally one brand, which is Get Active ABC. We share out stories as a whole. We don't have individual social media presence. In terms of the energy is part of the module, so it's in relation to your DEC, your scores A to F, on how you use utility, whether we're effective, and what we're doing in terms of managing our energy consumption. So whether we've got solar on the ceilings, whether we're turning lights off, it's being as effective as possible in terms of managing the energy and being aware of the energy we're using. But as I said, I'm happy to pick up any questions direct, if that's okay, Alderman Barr. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on item 3.4, and it's just really commend officers and the staff at Dromore Community Centre for that, enabling the centre to move into tier 1 and hopefully get that extension to the opening hours. I use that facility on a regular basis, so I don't think we'll have any problem getting the 27 memberships and hopefully a few more. And I think given the excellent rating for Dromore that's previously been mentioned, the centre is going from strength to strength. But I suppose just a quick query in terms of what the process is for this to be accepted as a pressure. I assume it's through estimates and efficiency and then onto the relevant committees, but just a bit of clarification for that. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Yes, and it's excellent to see how Dromore has done so well. Maybe bring.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, it would be picked up through the estimates process, which we're working through at the moment. So I'll go through the appropriate committees. Thank you.
Councillor O'Hanlon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just as actually in reference to 3.6 in terms of the workshops that's planned, there's details in relation to let's see, the play. And in particular, it mentions about the Orchard Leisure Centre in Armagh. It refers to our play strategy, or phase 2 for maintenance and upkeep. And if the two don't talk, then the next thing we have dirty play parks. We have equipment that is removed because it's not replaced or repaired. And I think it would be key to have maintenance and upgrades or included in that workshop.
Just yes. Can interrupt. Sorry, I can interrupt you there. We lost connection with your line. Just take the question, please.
Okay, so just in relation to if we can include maintenance as part of the workshop on the play strategy, on the workshop in relation to the Orchard Leisure Village in Armagh, can we have that widened to include the scope for the wider provision of leisure in Armagh as part of the Armagh Leisure Village proposal? And then thirdly, would it be possible to consider a workshop on outdoor play or outdoor provision? And I'm thinking of our play parks, that we could have a combined strategy for investment in the play in outdoor, as in Carna, Darkley, Gosford, Loughgall, etc., that we could have one joined up strategy. So it's those 3 points, please.
Thank you, councillor Holland. I'll bring Jonathan in. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hallam, for your questions. So yeah, in relation to the first 2 points, in relation to including the maintenance provision associated with any programme too, in terms of play strategy, happy to include that in the workshop, and also happy to include the maintenance aspects associated with Armagh of the Orchard Leisure Centre in the workshop as well. So certainly those points can be brought on to those relevant workshops. And thirdly, yep, so I think we do have a programme of workshops taking us through to January, February time. So we can then bring on a fifth workshop later on in possibly early spring in relation to the outdoor provision as well.
Sorry, just for clarity, Jonathan, the one in Armagh on Orchard Leisure, it's to include the scope of it to include the Armagh Leisure Village proposals or the discussions around that.
Councillor Alexander, you come in this time.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question in relation to 3.5. Like I think the basically all of the summer schemes are absolutely fantastic, and obviously we need to sort of continue doing those and potentially do more of them. The question I have really is just about the number of services we have for children with additional physical and mental needs, and really just is there a way we can look at how many places we're offering, how many events we're offering, basically for those children, because I've spoken to a couple of parents and certainly they would like to see more of them, and especially some of those kids have it becomes a bit more difficult for them to kind of socialize outside of school if they have as I say things like learning difficulties, physical difficulties, and I'd just like to see what we can do to do more of those types of events, and if there are any blockers, understand what they are. Like if it's the case that we need to maybe give staff some more training, those sorts of things to sort of help put these events on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. I'll bring in Neil. Hopefully, he can answer your questions.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Alexander, I would propose maybe that I get Gillian Jurt from the Sports Development Team maybe to give you a call tomorrow to maybe discuss any of the disability programmes, schemes and the areas of work that she is looking at the minute, if that would work for yourself.
A call, but perhaps on Wednesday would be, yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Bring in Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo what Councillor Alexander has said, but also just to say that the work the goal line and the All-Stars have been doing has been fantastic, and I think it'd be amiss not to note that tonight. Their numbers did go down slightly this year. I'm not sure as to the full reason as to why, or if we're going to extend that next year, but I just wanted it on record to say that they have been doing a fantastic job, and it'd be amiss of us not to say that.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Yes, and I agree wholeheartedly with your comments. Thank you. We don't see any other lights on or hands up in relation to those information items, with no items of correspondence. So moving on, can I seek a proposer and seconder to go into committee for consideration for our confidential items of business? Alderman Baxter proposed, and Councillor Evans seconds. Members and online viewers, in accordance with the Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICT officers to please turn off the feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of the meeting can proceed? Thank you. We have no items of AOB and I don't intend to take any at this late stage. Just one item that I have wished to bring to the floor this evening. Our good council officer here sitting beside me, Neil Thompson, this is his last meeting. Believing ABC Council to pastures new. He has been here I think just under a year with us. And I can personally say that any issues that I have raised with him, probably the main one is the sauna and Banbridge swimming pool. And have to say he was on the ball and got that sorted. I know Alderman Burns there. Alderman Burns was chomping at the bit to get into the sauna, but you're going to have to wait another few months. So, I'd just like to wish you, Neil, all the very best in the future for yourself and your family, and wish you all the best in the future. Yeah. Bring in our Deputy Chair, Councillor O'Kane.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, on